What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of No Casuals. This is episode 8 after a pretty long hiatus. We've been kind of busy doing a lot of things. Unfortunately, I have gotten Aiden sick with the flu because he agreed to be in my company for a little bit while I was also sick. And unfortunately, we have a new co host.
Hey guys, it's Ted. It's good to be back as a co-host. I'm really excited to talk about Saturday's card. It's going to be a good time.
Yeah, it should be fun. We will do a little bit of a different episode. It might be a little bit shorter. We have a new kind of setup. We got the fights in the background, a little bit of hype going on. But yeah, so replacing Ted's talks for this episode is going to be Aiden's talks. We'll see how controversial that is. We'll go through a couple of the fact or fake, and we're really just going to preview the co-main and the main event of 312 this coming Saturday. All right, so let's start it off. So fact or fake? Israel Adesanya should retire after his loss to Nasruddin Imavov. What do you think, Ted?
For me, this is a fake. I think Israel Adesanya, although he's taking the hits in his past couple of fights, he got submitted by Dricus, knocked out by Imavov. I say at this point, just give him one more and then call it quits after that.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, this guy's only 35, and I don't think that he needs to retire after a loss like that. He looked good in that first round. No reason for him to shut it all down. I think that he still, while he's on the decline in the back end of his career, there's absolutely no reason for him to just call it after that. Moving on. So we're both agree. We're both in agreement.
Well, just to add on to what you said, to point out, there are also fighters like Dominic Cruz, who just retired yesterday, who are older than Izzy. So I think, to shut it off that young is just kind of, it's not the right end when you had such a legendary career like Izzy has.
I completely agree. And there's also guys in the UFC that are screaming for retirement. I mean, you look at Tony Ferguson, this guy needs to retire. But you got a guy like Izzy, and I just don't think it's that necessary yet. Now, moving on. Next one, fact or fake? Imavov will eventually be a middleweight champion. What do you think, Ted?
For me, as long as Khamzat Chimaev is in the middleweight division, Imavov will not be a middleweight champion.
Yeah, well, I'm going to have to disagree with you. I think this is going to be a fact. So I think that a lot of the guys that are the top contenders right now in middleweight are kind of older.
Mm-hmm.
You look at Sean Strickland, DDP, Khamzat Chimaev, they're all in their 30s. I think Khamzat is in his 30s, right?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah, so those guys are all in a little bit older. And Imavov's, he's younger. He's like 29, I want to say. And I think this guy's got a lot of time to work and a lot of time to improve, and he's already beating some of the best middleweight. I mean, he beat one of the middleweight greatest of all times. So I really think that this guy at one point in his career will be a champion. I think that while maybe Khamzat is going to reign for a while, I fully believe that when he starts to go to the back end of his career, Imavov might take over, or he might surprise us with a win over some of these top contenders. All right, so yeah, a little disagreement there.
Yeah.
Moving on, Michael Venom Page is more dangerous at middleweight than he is at welterweight.
For me, this is a fact. And I think, based on what we've seen performances from both weight classes with Michael Venom Page. The fight against Shara Bullet was a really good fight. I loved what I saw personally from MVP during that fight. But I just think that there's more options and opportunities for him in the middleweight division than there is in the welterweight division. The welterweight rankings right now are very, very stacked. And I think that if MVP is looking for fight of the nights and bonuses, I think that the middleweight division is where he'll be able to do that best.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think that he looked a lot more natural, and that's probably the best weight class for him to stay in. He looked powerful, but he also looked light on his feet and just ready to go. So I'm in complete agreement with you there. All right, moving down, we're going to say, is DDP greater, with a win over Izzy, with a win over Sean Strickland, is he going to be a greater fighter all time than Israel Adesanya?
For me, this is completely fake. I think, Dricus is an amazing fighter, but he's still, at the beginning of his championship reign. He's got a fight this weekend against Sean Strickland. So Israel Adesanya has, knocked out Alex Pereira. He's beaten Robert Whittaker and all these other legends. So I just think it's a little too early to be putting putting Dricus in the same senses as greater all time than Israel Adesanya.
Yeah, I think we're going to agree again here because I completely agree with you. And I really believe that Izzy has beaten some of the guys that are maybe more dangerous when he fought them. I mean, look at Alex Pereira. This guy's insane. And I'm not trying to really undermine the people that DDP has beaten, but he's beaten, Sean Strickland, and he's about a rematch Sean Strickland. He beat Izzy at the end of his career, or back end of his career. So I really just feel like that Israel Adesanya has some more impressive wins under his belt. And with the win over Sean Strickland, I think it's very impressive, but a win over Khamzat would start to solidify, okay, this guy's going to be one of the all-time greats at middleweight.
I agree with that.
All right, so moving on. The winner of Zhang Weili versus Tatiana Suarez is the greatest pound-per-pound woman in the world.
For me,
big one. That's a big take there.
That's a big take, but for me, this is a fake. I don't think that the women's pound-for-pound division should be solidified by a single fight. There are other divisions that are also in the conversation. However, Valentina Shevchenko, who is currently holding the number one spot, has proven to be a little less, dominant than Zhang Weili. So I think, although Tatiana Suarez versus Zhang Weili can't solidify that number one spot, I don't think it should be relied on just a singular fight.
Yeah, I completely agree. So we're gonna leave it at that. All right. Cool. So moving down to next up, we're gonna preview just 3 of these fights that we think should be next. So Nasruddin Imavov versus Kyle Borralho. What do you think about that?
I think this should totally be a fight. I think this is a really fun fight. Kyle Borralho and Nasruddin Imavov. Seeing them in an octagon would be very fun. They both have not a similar style, but their builds just work together in a way, and I feel like it would be a very good fight.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think that Imavov necessarily deserves an immediate title shot. I know that Khamzat's going to get that after this weekend's fights. So I think that maybe one more fight, one more win under his belt, and he's next in line.
For sure.
Moving down, we got MVP versus Costa. What do you think about that?
This is an interesting one. Paulo Costa, and it's such a weird matchup because MVP is this unpredictable style, and Paulo Costa tends to be a little more on the conservative side. So I think for me personally, I think there's a little bit of an unnecessary fight. I think there's opponents out there for MVP that can be a little more of a fun fight.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think that it's probably something that I would like to see, just because I think MVP, it's time for him to get maybe a little higher rank of an opponent. And Costa is also, if you're looking at MVP in the way I feel like UFC matchmakers are, this might be the fight to make, because I feel like MVP style can kind of pick apart Costa's defensive, tone that he uses. So I think this is a good fight to make, and I think that it probably makes sense. But there's a couple other options, maybe a little bit low ranker fighters that they could deal with this. Now we'll do one more on the next up. So Pavlovich versus the winner of Tybura Parkin.
I think this is pretty obvious that this should be a fight. For me personally, I do have Tybura winning that fight, and I think Pavlovich versus Tybura is just a very fun fight overall.
Yeah. All right, so now we're going to put it on the screen for you guys, but we're going to react to Aiden's Talks, a very anticipated segment for me. And we'll see what he has to say. I've heard he gets kind of wild on these segments.
Let's see. Here goes nothing.
Hey guys, Luke got me sick, so I'm not going to be in person and not going to be able to record a full episode of No Casuals. I'll be in Canada. But I do have a nice piece of news and a nice little hot take for you guys on Aiden's Talks. Yeah, not TED Talks, Aiden Talks. Get it right. First, BFS and I are working together to make sure we have some of the greatest athletes in not only California, but the entire United States on our show in the near future. So look forward to that. Look forward to exclusive interviews, new content, and a more regular upload schedule. I know we've been off the grid for a little while. We're going to be back, and we're going to be coming full freaking swing. Okay? That's the good news. Look, see, bro, I'm sick. Wipe my nose, bro. Speaking of wiping nose, Dricus Duplessis is going to wipe Sean Strickland's nose after he knocks him out cold in probably the 3rd or 4th round. Strickland's going to get caught doing a stupid teep thing. Duplessis is going to land an overhand right, a hook, something while on a blitz, and drop Strickland and eventually knock him out with ground and pound. You heard it here first. Hammer that on DraftKings or whatever betting platform you use. And make sure to tune in this Saturday, UFC 312, 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific. Lock in. This has been Aiden's Talks, and I'm excited to see what you and Teddy do. Back to you guys.
All right. As you can see, I'm a little bit sick as well. But an interesting take also about the future of No Casuals. There's a lot to be anticipated. I mean, Aiden's really working hard with VFS, and we're going to bring a lot of these guys who, might be the future of modern mixed martial arts into this space. So it's really exciting, and it's something that you guys should be looking forward to. We'll get to meet a lot of prospects and talk to them, see what they're doing, how they plan to set themselves apart for their future career. Now, let's dive into Aiden's take here, because I as much as I want to agree with him, I completely disagree with him. I think that in this rematch, Sean Strickland is going to come out on top. I think that having him as a plus 180 underdog is a little... I don't agree with it. I think that Sean Strickland probably won the first fight, even though it could have gone either way, and a lot of people disagree with me. But I think that Sean Strickland's weird, defensive, awkward style kind of clashes with DDP's, and DDP is really this chaos fighter. And Sean is a defensive fighter. He's someone who is very, very meticulous in where he wants to get hit, and he watches he's very, and we see how this played out last time. It was an awkward fight, but it was a point contest. And I think that this time it's going to be very similar. I think Sean Strickland's going to win by decision. I don't see him getting knocked out by DDP. I think that when we saw how DDP went against Izzy, it really proved that when he goes up against certain styles, he is successful. But when he goes up against Sean Strickland, that was the one fighter that really showed, okay, that he has another side to him that might be a weakness. And I think Sean's going to take advantage of that. And I think that he's going to come out with a decision when it's not going to be a knockout. I think it's pretty much, a guaranteed decision under my belt. But these guys say they're going to go to war, and so I'm excited to see it.
So, while I do agree with you, Luke, I do have a little bit of a slight disagreement there, and almost the complete opposite of what Aiden had to say today. So, actually, when I filmed my TED Talks the other day, I had Sean Strickland winning by a knockout, almost exactly how Aiden described it, but the other way around. So, at UFC 305, when Dricus faced Adesanya, we saw a little bit of how he rushed forward a little bit inconsistently, and I think that's going to be another pattern that we see on Saturday night. And I think Sean is going to catch him with a lucky shot on the chin, and he's going to drop him, similar to when he faced Adesanya at UFC 293. But I think that this time the ground and pound is going to be more vicious. He's going to work the elbows more, and he's going to get it done.
All right, yeah. I mean, we disagree or kind of agree, but we'll see what happens. It's all going to go down Saturday night, and it should be an interesting fight regardless. I think this is my most anticipated fight on the card, just because I think the magnitude of it is pretty important. But let's preview some of these other fights. So on the co-main, we got Welly versus Suarez, which is a massive fight. I mean, we talked about the implications of this, maybe being the greatest pound-for-pound woman in the world, maybe not. But I think that this is a huge fight. I know Suarez is actually, I'm pretty sure she's the favorite for this, which is surprising to me. But I also think that, she's a little bit of a favorite. So this is really like a 50-50 fight in my odds. I think that if Welly was to win, she would probably win by knockout. And maybe in the later rounds, I would think like 4 or 5. And that's just going to be because Suarez is going to get tired, maybe not used to the pressure of some of these longer fights, 25-minute fights. I fully think that Welly's going to come out on top, maybe surprise the world a little bit, but I think she's going to get it done. What do you think, Ted?
Yeah, I'm going to have to agree with you here, and I think that Zhang Weili, has these championship fights under her belt. She knows how they go. She knows what 5 rounds is like, and she has that cardio in her, unlike anybody else in the strawweight division, and I just don't think that Tatiana Suarez is ready for a fighter as dominant as Zhang Weili.
Yep, I think we completely agree there. Now, let's preview a couple more fights. So we got Colby Thicknessy, is that how you say his name?
I'm pretty sure.
Versus Toporia's brother, Alexander Topuria. What do you think about that, Ted? Because I know this is one of the fights that you're really, really looking forward to, maybe even more than the co-main and the main event. Is that right?
Yeah, that is exactly right. I'm really excited for this fight. And, this is just one of those fights that... So Colby Thickness is fighting on short notice. This was supposed to be Cody Haddon, but he broke his leg. So a new opponent for Alexandre Topuria, but it's going to be a fun one. You got Volkanovski in Colby's corner. You got Ilya in his brother's corner. It's just going to be absolutely amazing. And I think that Colby's going to shut down Alexandre, and I think it's going to be a really good fight.
Yeah, I kind of disagree with you here. I feel like knowing a little bit about the Topuria brothers and their story, I feel like Topuria is going to be pretty similar to his. Is he who's the older brother in this? Who is Alexander older or is Ilya older?
I'm actually not sure. I'll have to research that.
Okay, well, yeah, I really think they also kind of look different.
Yeah.
But Yeah, it should be interesting. I know that Taporia's fought some guys with some really like odd records. I mean, I'm pretty sure he fought someone who was 18 and like 60, and we're like not to say that that's not something that's like impressive. Like, yeah, I'm not gonna undermine his win, but because we saw like Khabib kind of do the same thing when he was coming to UFC, he fought guys that were maybe not the stars of their promotions. But I think it should be exciting, and I think that Taporia is a pretty big favorite for this fight, which probably makes sense. The two corners, I love the beef. Someone from Australia, someone from Georgia. Of course, we're gonna have Volkanovski, and we're gonna have Taporia on the corners, and it's just gonna be a great fight. There's a lot of respect between them too, which I love. And this leading off the prelims is something that I'm super excited for. Yeah, I mean, it'd be amazing to see these guys, like these two brothers, really take over their divisions, bantamweight and featherweight. It'd be amazing.
Great backstory. I love it. And I'm just seeing now that Alexandre Topuria is actually older than Ilya.
Yeah, he's the older brother. So there you go. Interesting.
Very interesting.
Yeah, following in the wake of his younger brother's footsteps.
Yeah.
Something I'm not familiar with. Onward, we have let's preview like maybe one or two more. One that I want to talk about is Wang Kong versus Bruno Brazil.
Yeah.
I think that this is an interesting fight. I also feel like Wang Kong in her last fight was a massive favorite. She was, kind of getting a little bit cocky. She had the Joker face, doing this whole ceremony thing. And then she got she got submitted. Am I correct? I'm pretty sure she got submitted.
She got submitted, and it was one of the biggest upsets
she was
the year.
She was almost a minus 1,000 underdog. I mean, this when you talk about women's MMA, the fact that this can just be like anything can happen, especially on it's any given Saturday. I don't know if I buy her hype anymore, and I feel like Bruno Brazil is probably going to get it done, and Wang Kong might not be able to do it.
I agree with you. I think after that last fight, all of us kind of got off of the Wang Kong hype train.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. All right, so that's going to be it for this episode of No Casuals. We have a big weekend. Sorry for the shorter episode. We're going to be back to normal episodes soon with a lot to come. I mean, we got these future prospects that are going to be on our show, and it's going to be great. You guys got a lot to look forward to. Any last words, Ted?
Thank you guys for tuning in. It's been great talking about UFC 312. It's going to be great.
See you guys.
Peace.